Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking into the life of someone really pivotal in California's medical cannabis story, Charles Eddy Lepp. His life, well, it's intense. A real snapshot of that clash between state medical rights and federal prohibition. Our mission here is to explore how this one guy, driven by finding peace after Vietnam, ended up defining so much of the early legal and, frankly, ethical battles. If you're wondering about the roots of today's huge cannabis industry, well, it connects back to people like Eddy.
Absolutely. And what's key right from the start is that Lepp wasn't, hiding. He was deliberately out in the open. He basically threw down the gauntlet, challenging the system. And the sources we're drawing on, they really spell out the immense personal cost of that kind of defiance. It shows you what was truly on the line back then.
Okay, let's get into that journey from Vietnam vet to, well, visionary, maybe? The sources paint him as this guy profoundly shaped by war. He comes back, settles in NorCal, finds farming. But for him, finding peace, it seems, was tied up with finding cannabis. He wasn't born a rebel, but the war and the plant kind of made him one.
Yeah, it's a powerful story of healing, the turning into activism. And he wasn't alone in this. He plugged right into the existing counterculture movement, got connected with big names like Jack Herer.
The Emperor Hemp, right?
That's the one. And Dennis Perone, too, another legend. So he was part of a known activist lineage, finding his specific role.
That context helps frame it. So he's primed for action, and then 1996 happens. California passes Prop 215. For Lepp, this wasn't just politics. The source material calls it a genuine calling, like the state itself gave him the green light.
He really believed that. He saw it as legal and moral permission to go big, to provide medicine.
Okay, so he feels this calling. How quickly does he act on it? And what did this Lake County operation actually look like? Because the name alone, Eddy's Medicinal Gardens and Multi-Denominational Ministry of Cannabis and Rastafari, tells you something.
It tells you everything, doesn't it? He saw it as sacred work, a ministry, and that's why the scale was just audacious. This wasn't some backyard garden. It became one of the first really large-scale compassion farms.
Large-scale meaning?
Meaning supporting hundreds of registered patients under Prop 215's caregiver rules. The sources say hundreds of patient gardens, side by side, under his watch. It was communal.
Hold on. Hundreds of patients back then, in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That must have meant just a staggering number of plants.
Oh, absolutely. Astronomical.
Was there pushback? Even within the movement? Like, was this too big, pushing the limits of Prop 215?
Definitely debate, yeah. Both inside and outside the activist circles.
Yeah.
And that massive scale is what made it so visible. He wasn't trying to hide it. The farm was right there off Highway 20. Anyone driving by could see rows and rows of these huge green plants.
Wow, just out in the open like that.
It basically forced a confrontation.
Incredible imagery. And the descriptions, right? Some people saw a revolution, others, well, they called it a Christmas tree lot because the plants were so big.
Exactly. That visibility split opinions, but it guaranteed the federal government would eventually step in. California authorities might have, looked the other way because of Prop 215, but the DEA, they saw something totally different.
A crime scene is what they called it.
That's the term they used, yeah. Not medicine, not ministry, just illegal activity.
Which leads us to the 2004 raid. A landmark event, really. The numbers are just wild. Sources confirm it was one of the biggest medical era raids ever. We're talking, what was it?
Roughly 25,000 to 32,000 plants seized. Just think about that number in the context of the early 2000s for a nonprofit compassion farm.
Mind-boggling. And that became the core of the federal case against him.
It did. Lepp argued he was following state law, serving real patients, but the feds charged him with conspiracy, manufacture, distribution, the whole federal playbook. The key legal fight boiled down to jurisdiction. State rights versus federal law.
Can you break that down simply? If California said yes, why could the feds just roll in?
Well, it's the supremacy clause, basically. Federal law overrides state law when there's a conflict. The federal judge in Lepp's case was very clear. California's Prop 215 was irrelevant in federal court. It offered zero protection.
So he was tried under federal rules for actions that were legal, or at least defensible, under state rules.
Precisely. A head-on collision between the two systems.
And the outcome was harsh. 2009, Judge Marilyn Hall Patel. 10 years. A decade in federal prison.
10 years, yeah. For running an operation under a state medical law, it sent shockwaves.
What was the vibe in the courtroom during sentencing? Sources mention his reaction.
Intense. Judge Patel apparently gave him a chance to, show remorse, maybe get a lighter sentence. Lepp flat out refused, said he had nothing to apologize for. He identified himself right there as a minister for the sick and dying.
Wow. Principle over freedom.
Absolutely. He chose to stand on his beliefs, even knowing the cost. That cemented his status, really, as a martyr for the cause.
And he served most of that sentence, right? 8.5 years, first Texas, then Colorado.
That's right. But being locked up didn't mean he stopped being Eddy Lepp.
How so? What could he do from inside?
He turned to art, started painting these very detailed kind of psychedelic gardens and sanctuaries.
Paintings. From prison.
Yeah, powerful stuff, apparently. Symbolic, his supporters outside would sell the art.
To raise money.
Exactly. For prisoner aid, legal funds for others caught in the same bind. The art kept his spirit, his defiance, visible.
And that kept the Free Eddy Lepp movement going strong. It wasn't just a slogan.
No, it was fueled by him. His letters from prison, described as full of humor and grit, kept people connected and fighting for him.
That consistency, never backing down.
Yeah.
It rallied people for nearly a decade.
It really did. He became this symbol of the injustice many felt. So when he finally walked free in December 2016, it was a big moment.
And he didn't just fade away, did he?
No, jumped right back in. Received a High Times Lifetime Achievement Award in 2017, the industry acknowledging its debt.
A debt paid with years of his life. Sadly, he passed away in August 2021 from cancer. But that quote, summarizing his life, "I did it for love. Love of the plant and love of the people." That says it all, doesn't it? Risking everything, not for money, but for belief.
It really does capture his essence, pure dedication.
So looking at his legacy today, it's not just about changing laws or court cases, is it? It's tangible. It's in the plants themselves.
That's the amazing part. His influence is literally alive in the genetics that shape today's cannabis market.
You mean specific strains?
Yeah, absolutely. Strains like OG Eddy Lepp, bred by Shiloh Massive, carry his name, and, growers would say, certain desirable traits linked to his work.
Like what kind of traits?
Often things like high potency, strong plant structure, complex terpene profiles, the kind of quality he was known for cultivating.
And these older genetics are still relevant. They're being used in new stuff.
Definitely. OG Eddy Lepp is a building block in some really popular modern crosses, like Oz Kush. That uses Eddy Lepp OG crossed with Skittles.
So even if someone today doesn't know Eddy Lepp's story, they might be experiencing the results of his work directly.
Precisely. His lineage is physically present in today's regulated market. He literally helped build the genetic blueprint.
So for you, the listener, interacting with this legal industry, what's the big takeaway here? Eddy Lepp showed that compassion could find a way, even under intense prohibition, that the freedom we see now, the dispensaries, the big grows, it sprouted from the soil he once turned, as one source put it.
He demonstrated a moral commitment that operated outside and sometimes against the legal framework of the time.
And always remember that core motivation. He said it himself. He wasn't growing to get rich. He grew it so people could live.
Yeah. That distinction is pretty stark compared to some aspects of the industry today.
His story is just this raw, human example of the incredible risks people took during that shift from illegal compassion to the legal regulated market we have now.
He drew the line, showed the real cost of challenging federal power head-on. His visibility, his refusal to apologize, it forced the conversation.
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to chew on. Think about that gap. A 10-year federal sentence hanging over someone in 2009 for growing 30,000 plants out of compassion. Now compare that to today's multi-billion-dollar state legal cannabis corporations growing massive amounts for profit. Same plant, vastly different context. So the question is, what responsibility does today's industry, the inheritors of this fight, have towards the pioneers like Eddy Lepp, towards the activists, the prisoners who paid the price?
Does that new wealth have an obligation to honor the old sacrifice?
Something to consider. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the legacy of Eddy Lepp. We'll see you next time.